Hi everybody, my name is Helen and you are watching Los Angeles English School YouTube channel. If you are new to our channel, please hit the subscribe button and go through the videos that we have on offer for you. So we are going to start a new series where I will be explaining some phrasal verbs and idioms. I'm planning on making one video every week. And I'm going to create a separate playlist where I'm going to be adding the videos, episodes with different phrasal verbs and idioms. Today, we're going to be looking at the idioms on topic feelings. So why don't we just get started? So we're gonna guess an idiom or a phrase, and I'm also encouraging you so that you should use any ideas that you have and actually say the phrases or idioms out loud if anything springs to your mind. So the first definition that we have in here is to feel overwhelmed by emotions like regret or guilt. Is there any idiom or phrase that you can think of? If you have anything in your mind, just try and say those phrases out loud. Great. I'm sure you were able to come up with some phrases. So let's take a look at what this idiom is. So it's actually a phrasal verb that is to eat someone up. And I'm really encouraging you to say this phrase out loud after me. To eat someone up. So you can say something is eating her up. So maybe it's regret or guilt or some emotions that she cannot calm down and she cannot relax. So something is bothering her. To eat someone up. So you can say, I heard the terrible news and now it's eating me up. To eat someone up. All right, so let's go to the next phrase. We have a hint in here. So it's a situation where the outcome is very important. It can be a very important decision or something that is risky. Are there any phrases that you can think of? Okay, I'm sure you did great. So let's take a look at this word. It's high stakes. High stakes. You can say it's a very high stakes situation, or it's a very high stakes exam, or maybe it's a very high stakes test. So, high stakes, that means pretty important or risky. And it functions actually as an adjective. High stakes. Let's just say it together. High stakes. High stakes. All right, so let's move on to the next slide. So a hint here is to make a decision based on instinct rather than logic. So you follow your heart more than your brain. Are there any phrases that spring to your mind as you see the hint? Yeah, so there is a phrase to go with one's gut. You also can say to go with one's gut feeling. So, for example, I didn't really know what to do, but I decided just to go with my gut, which means I decided to follow my instinct, to follow my intuition. I'm sure that there are many times where we have to follow our gut just because we do not know what to do or we're not sure of what to do. All right, so let's say it together. To go with one's gut. To go with one's gut. So you say, I go with my gut. You go with your gut. You should go with your gut. Perfect. Moving on to the next slide. Yeah, so here we have something that has a negative meaning. So it's to cause deep emotional pain. It's very similar to eat someone up, but it's actually another phrasal verb. Are there any phrasal verbs or idioms that spring to your mind now? Okay, so let's take a look at the answer together. To tear someone up. To tear someone up. So this guy in the picture is actually tearing a pile of paper. So tear has the same spelling as tear. So when we cry, we have tears in our eyes. Tear is spelled exactly the same, but the pronunciation is completely different. So to tear someone up, that means to cause deep emotional pain. So for example, you can say, his harsh words really tore me up. And we have three forms, tear, tore, torn. Please don't say this to me. It tears me up. So let's just say it together. To tear someone up. To tear someone up. All right, moving on to our next slide. Is there any phrase or idiom that springs to your mind when you see the hint to reveal a secret? Okay, so I bet you were able to come up with some solutions. Let's take a look at the answer. To spill the beans. To spill the beans. To spill the beans means to reveal a secret, and normally you shouldn't have done that, but you did it. For example, I shouldn't have told him about the present, but I spilled the beans. I spilled the beans. So to spill the beans, it's to tell a secret, and normally you shouldn't do it, right? So let's just say it together. To spill the beans. To spill the beans. Right, moving on to our next slide. It's a word that means a book or a movie that evokes a lot of emotions, often sadness. So normally it's something very touching and sensitive. Like, for example, Titanic. This is an old movie that everybody knows about, and it's very touching. Hey, what is that word that you can use when you talk about such a movie or a book? Are there any words that you can think of? All right, so let's take a look at the answer together. Tearjerker. Tearjerker, it's a sad movie that usually evokes a lot of emotions and makes you cry. And as you can see, again, we have this word, but now it's tear, not tear, because it provokes you to cry and you have tears in your eyes. So tear jerker, not tear, but tear. Tear jerker. It was a real tear jerker, which means that movie was very sad and I cried. Okay, perfect. So now we're gonna go on and we are going to look at some questions. I'm really encouraging you, as you're going to be listening to my questions that I'm about to read, make sure to try and answer. Even if you're alone and there is no one with you who is talking to you, just imagine that you're talking with me and answer the questions out loud. Okay, so let's take a look at the first question with the phrase to eat someone up. I hope you remember that to eat someone up means that something evokes strong feelings and doesn't let you relax or calm down. You're overwhelmed by those emotions or feelings. So, my question to you here, have you ever seen someone else get eaten up with anger? Why do they feel this way? Pause for a moment, think about your answer, and try to say the answer out loud. All right, perfect. So sometimes we may see some people eaten up with anger, and there may be different reasons for this, right? Sometimes we can see some customers, they didn't get proper service, and they might be eaten up with anger, and they want to complain. So high stakes, if you remember, high stakes means very important and sometimes even risky. Do you think you perform better or worse in high stakes situations? Pause for a second, think about your answer, and try to say it. Amazing. So for me, I personally prefer not to have high stakes situations or not to get into those situations. And I usually perform probably worse in high stakes situation because I really want to be calm. So, moving on to our next phrase, to go with one's gut. So, you probably remember that to go with one's gut means to follow your intuition and instinct rather than logical reasoning, rather than your brain, right? So, my question here, in what situations do you feel it's best to go with your gut? Can you recall a time when following your gut paid off? Again, pause for a moment and try to think about the answer. Yeah. So, very often, there are some cases where you really do not know what to do, and you just go with your gut, right? You just do what you think or what you feel is best for you. Okay, the next word, to tear someone up. To tear someone up. So, this phrasal verb, if you remember, and I hope you do, means when we cause or someone causes emotional pain, right? It kind of tears us up, right? Don't forget, it's not tear someone up, but it is tear someone up in our case. Have you ever felt torn up by a difficult decision you had to make? Again, pause for a moment, think about your answer, and try to give it out loud. Amazing. All right. So I have been torn up by a difficult decision, of course, because sometimes there are some decisions that, make you feel overwhelmed and you really do not know what to do. And here you also can say, I was eaten up, right? So I really didn't know what to do, and it was so complicated. So the next phrase, to spill the beans, to spill the beans. Of course, you remember that to spill the beans means to reveal a secret, right? So, have you ever spilled the beans? Pause for a moment and give your answer. Do not forget, it's highly recommended that you give your answer out loud. Awesome. Of course, it's not very good to spill the beans, and I personally try not to do so. But sometimes things happen, right? Of course, I spilled the beans on several occasions. And the final word here is tearjerker. Tearjerker. I'm sure you remember that a tearjerker is a book or a movie with a sad plot, like Titanic, for example, something that makes you cry. What makes a movie or a book a tearjerker for you? Can you think of any tearjerker movie? Again, pause for a second, think about your answer, and try to say it out loud. Amazing. And the two movies that spring to my mind now is the first one is Titanic, which I have already mentioned, and another one that springs to my mind is Braveheart. These are old movies, but I remember watching them and crying. All right, okay. So we're gonna go and do another activity, which is fill in the gaps. So fill in the gaps is really helpful because it helps to remember and reinforce the phrases. What we're gonna do now is we will read each sentence and there are some hints that will help you understand what phrase you should use. So let's do it together. So I'm gonna read the first sentence for you. She was so nervous about the meeting that the anxiety was starting to her inside. And we have a hint, feeling overwhelmed by something. Pause for a second and try to think, what is that phrase or a phrasal verb or an idiom or a word that you should use in the gaps? Great job. So she was so nervous about the meeting that the anxiety was starting to eat her up inside. So the anxiety was starting to eat her up inside, which means that she couldn't calm down. She wasn't relaxed. She was overwhelmed by that meeting. Okay, let's go to number two. The final exam felt like a situation because it would determine whether I passed the course or not. We have a hint, an important or risky situation. All right, so again, pause, think. Try to remember that word that you need to use in the gap. Amazing. So I bet you have the correct answer. The final exam felt like a high stakes situation. So we have this word high stakes that functions as an adjective, and you would always have this as here. Even if it's one situation, you would say a high stakes situation, not a high stake situation. So the final exam felt like a high stakes situation because it would determine whether I passed the course or not. So, very important and risky situation. Wonderful. Let's go to the to the next sentence. Even though everyone gave me advice, I decided to and follow my intuition. And we have a hint, trust your instinct. So trust your instinct rather than think too much and follow your brain or your logic. Okay, so pause for a second and think, what is that phrase or an idiom that you would use in here? Great job. So, even though everyone gave me advice, I decided to follow my gut. So, I need to type it in here. Follow my gut or go with my gut. Go with my gut or go with my gut feeling. You do not have to use the word feeling, but you can if you want to. So I decided to go with my gut or to go with my gut feeling. Both answers would be okay. Perfect. So we're moving on to sentence number 4. His harsh words really me. I couldn't stop thinking about them for days. And again, there is a hint for you, feeling emotionally hurt. Pause for a second. Think about the phrase that you should use in the gaps. All right, so I hope you could remember the correct answer. His harsh words really tore me up. So if you remember, tore me up means they hurt me emotionally. I was overwhelmed, right? I couldn't be relaxed or calm. So I got nervous, maybe hurt. And we have the word tear, and 3 forms of tear would be tear, tore, torn. So normally something can tear me up, but in the past you would say tore me up. So his harsh words really tore me up. Great. Moving on to the next sentence. We planned a surprise party, but Jane accidentally and spoiled the surprise. And again, you have a hint in here revealing a secret. Pause for a moment and think about the word that you need to use in here. It's actually a couple of words, yeah, so this is an idiom that you would need to use here. Amazing. So we planned a surprise party, but Jane accidentally spilled the beans. So spilled the beans, it means she spoiled a surprise, right? So she revealed a secret. And finally, we have the last sentence. The movie was such, I couldn't hold back my tears during the emotional scenes. And again, the hint, something that makes you cry. Pause for a moment and think about the word that you need to use in the gap. I'm sure you got it. So the movie was such a tearjerker. And just a reminder that Tearjerker, it's a movie or a book with a very sad plot that makes you cry. Great, I hope you did a great job and actually it helped you remember the phrases. Perfect. So this is the first video in the series for phrasal verbs and idioms. I hope that you liked the video and it helped you remember the phrasal verbs and idioms to describe feelings and emotions. If you're new to our channel, please do not forget to hit the subscribe button to subscribe to our channel. And again, a reminder, I'm gonna make one video every week and I'm gonna put the video in the playlist that would be called Phrasal Verbs and Idioms. Also, if you can give us a like, that would be really appreciated. So I hope you have a wonderful day and I'll see you in my next video. Bye!